So I've been a little bit slack on videos for a good reason. I've been busy working on a fiberglass roof lining because the original one just wasn't really going to cut it. I didn't tell the owner that I was doing this. It was a bit of a surprise. So conveniently he's just been across from WA and visited and had a look and shown him, so now he knows about it. So this episode will be basically the fiberglass roof. Found a unit of records for a donor roof so that I can build the roof lining in fiberglass, mould one up, and so I can flip it upside down. This one's obviously not going to be to be used anymore, so we shall chop that one off and get it home and start some fiberglass. As you can see, we've now got it in place. So this episode will show the construction of it, from the new turret that I went and got from the wreckers to a second-hand roof lining that was in very average condition, and basically shaped down to fit and then moulded into the corners to fit about as good as I can get it. A couple of lights in there because the original light's obviously gone. So yeah, we've got all the trays sort of sitting in there so we can show him. A couple of bits inside, the console lid that I started on, and the surround around the processor, eyeball sub surrounds, and the tailgate section, which has been smoothed in under construction still. But yeah, other than that, enjoy the episode and you'll be able to see the making of the roof lining, and whatever else we can chuck in there. So one thing that was never done on the original build, from what I can tell, was the roof lining. This one's in reasonably good condition. To me it looks like it's been retrimmed, so I'm guessing the foam's probably collapsed at some stage and it's been redone. There's a couple of creases in it, so it's not exactly the best condition, but I didn't want to wreck that one just in case I couldn't replace it. So my local wreckers conveniently had a ute that just came in, so managed to get one that was in very average condition as far as the trim goes. It was staples all through it, but the cardboard itself was reasonably good, aside from a bit of a bubble in the middle which the bottle's fixed. So I've put a couple of coats of resin on that, trying to make it a bit stiffer. So hopefully I can get the shape perfect, and then I'll put a layer of fiberglass matting over it, and then ultimately smooth it all out and paint it and airbrush it to match the rest of the interior, which to me sort of stood out that it wasn't really done. So I haven't told the owner I'm doing this one. That's why I want to use a different roof lining, just in case he doesn't like it, but I think it'll tie in really well with the whole theme of the build, so I don't think it'll be an issue, and it'll be interesting to see if he actually notices it. So I got a layer of glass on it and started sanding it. There's a couple of lumps and bubbles in the middle of it, so I've got some bog to try and smooth it out best I can. It's not going to be perfect, but once it's painted, you're really not going to see the long wobbles in it. Won't really be a major issue. But yeah, to put it in the ute, I need to fix up these corners to try and make it sit neat, because being painted, there's going to be no tolerance for gaps or anything, so I'm going to have to spend a bit of time to make it perfect, but I think it's going to be worth the time and should look the part. So I'm going to get some Bondo on it and we'll get some sanding done and try and test fit it. Righto, got the roof in. Just done a quick once over with the buzzer to get as much weight out of it as possible, just to try and sit it in there. Seems to fit pretty good at the moment. Got a couple of corners to tidy up. The back I'm not really worried about because the box will cover that anyway. We'll still paint it, but it'll still be pretty rough behind there, but no one's ever going to see it. That's where my plan is to put 2 flush mounted lights, LED lights. We'll try and do some airbrushing to incorporate them in so you don't really see them. But because we're losing the light at the back, there's going to be no lights on the inside. So I'd like to use those to light up the interior at shows. seems to be the logical place to put them above the roof, and hopefully they won't really be seen unless they're turned on, and being LED they won't draw any power, so it shouldn't flatten any batteries or anything. So that's where we're at. Get it out and keep going with a bit of glassing across the front just to finish that off, make it nice and neat and smooth. And then we'll get some primer on it, see what it looks like, get it painted, and hopefully it looks the part. Bit of a test run on the lights that I just put in the roof lining. I'm guessing just a generic little LED flat surface caravan kind of lights, but they're moulded into the roof lining so they're flat. I'll try and incorporate those into the airbrushing, but they're more than enough light. I've never had an interior light before because it was covered by the box, so this is definitely an improvement over what it was. But I think once that's at a show, if it's indoors, turn those on, low current draw, so it shouldn't send a battery flat. Should be just enough to light up the eyeballs, which are got to go back in the behind the seats. Once all that's painted up, it should come up nice clean lights. Lights up everything beautifully. Open the doors back up, so I've got a bit of light in here. Now that I've turned the lights off, you can see how big they are. Flush mount, so hopefully you can work out something with the airbrushing and you really won't even see them, or they'll be a feature of the airbrushing in the roof. So that's ready for primer. Got a couple of bits on the corners to tidy up. It's been a lot of hours, but I think it'll be worth it. It'll certainly make it stand out when someone sits in there and looks up, that's for sure. New roof lining project's nearly complete. Ready for primer. Spent a lot of time making sure that everything's sort of straight and fits in the corners. The rear light, not using. It's got a couple of screws there to hold it up. The box will go right up to it. I'll chuck a photo up so you can see what that looks like. But it's pretty much it. So hopefully I can get it primed and sealed up and see what it looks like. That's the lights that will go in there. So they're very, very shallow. They'll sit in the hole up there. So once they're in there and airbrushed, hopefully you won't even really notice them. I'll chuck up a photo of a quick test run to see what it looks like at night with it lit up. It works pretty damn good. So lots of progress today. Got everything out of here now. Luke's got the roof lining primed. I'll chuck up a quick photo of that so you can see that one. And then everything else is out of the back of it. So I've got to put the roof lining back in first before I can put the box in, before I can put the panel in, so on and so on. So been around and started making the rings for the subs. So that bit will be painted, the rest will be vinyl. Still got to make a big blanking panel to go across the front of that. And started on the processor trim panel, which really don't know how that's supposed to go. I've only got one photo of it, and for the seats to go all the way back, it's going to be substantially different to what it was originally anyway. It'll still be painted silver, so it'll still look the same effectively, but it means that the seats that go here should be able to go all the way back. So I'll mould all that in to pretty much wrap around the seat so that the owner can fit in there properly, otherwise he'll struggle to get in there. I've got some brackets for the box to secure it to the B-pillar, so that with the weight of it, even if it stops in a hurry or in an accident by chance, then it can't come flying forward and smack you in the back of the head. So we'll make sure there's some fairly substantial bolts to hold that in and try and get that all done, and then I can continue making the rest of the box. So that's where we're up to. I'll chuck in a time lapse now of building the rings, which was quite a fair bit amount of work to make all the different layers so that everything can be mounted without having any screws visible. That's going to be the tricky part. So once we get all that sorted out, we'll get some more photos and video. Got my roof lining back from Luke, all primed up. Came up pretty good. I've got a couple of little spots, pinholes and stuff I've got to fill, but looks the part now. So once that's primed again, then we can pretty much chuck it in there, paint it, and work out what we're going to do for artwork and stuff like that. trim panel around. The process is getting there. I've got to start sanding and bogging that now to make that fit nicely. And got the box back in at the moment without the roof lining, but it doesn't really matter so much. Got the bracket on it so I can put rib nuts in the side of the pillars so I can mount that properly. And got the rings, finished the routing on that, so that can be pretty much glued together and start shaping that so that can be primed and ready for paint as well. I'll get some more 3mm and make a panel that'll go all the way around once the roof lining's back in, so it'll sit up nice and neat to it. And then chuck the panel back in there and then continue making trim panels to hide all the bits and gaps around the sides and stuff, which is probably the last thing on the list to do in the cab. And then we can start painting some stuff and get it all back together.